guest today on To My Way of Thinking is Terry Payne from out of Marble, North Carolina. He is a blog poster. Have received a number of his posts over the years. He's been a previous guest of ours here at To My Way of Thinking, and I couldn't wait to get him back based upon all of the activity that's going on. Terry, blog post, you can see it, search it out under Mr. Snipe 1945. And you can get all the information about what's happening around the country and his view about it on that blog post. Thanks for joining us again, Terry.
Hey, welcome. Thanks so much, Fred.
Well, I would think that you've gotten that some of your postings and your ideas may be coming to fruition here within the next few months. Certainly, come January 20th at high noon, a lot of that is going to come into play. But you have a list of things. Do you think that the incoming administration is going to achieve those ideas that you put forth?
Well, I think on a limited basis. Eh, I think that there's only so much that can be done through executive orders, and I think the priorities should be for the country is the immigration and the economy, which are kind of linked together. But both those things are going to take some time to ramp up. And I mean, I'm very familiar with what President-elect Trump his goals are, which are great. I think that um, through executive orders, he can do quite a bit with regards to the economy and the immigration issue. But the biggest concern I have is a conservative, because I don't know if I told you, I actually left the Republican Party last year because I got frustrated that weren't carrying through with the policies their constituents, elected them to do. But the biggest problem that I see is not with the Democrat Party. I mean, I know where they're headed, but is the Republicans in the House and the Senate, in particular in the Senate. I'm very concerned that um, we have an obstructionist force there that, at least in the past, when Trump's first term, they prevented his building the wall, the funding for the wall, and they also prevented the infrastructure funding, which he wanted to get done, primarily because Mitch McConnell stopped a lot of that stuff. And now we have a Mitch McConnell version 2.0 in Thune, who really, I'm hoping that he'll be more open and more transparent to the taxpayers. But the jury is out on that, isn't it? We just don't know.
Well, I would tend to think, given the kind of loyalty and the sweep of the country that incoming president has done, that the party in both houses would be, kind of far-fetched not to follow up on what the president has promised and what his desires are. I think that the American public has pretty much spoken that they want to see a change and they want to see major changes. And obviously, the border crisis is one of the biggest things that was on the list, followed by obviously the economy, inflation in particular. So I would tend to think that the incoming leadership, particularly in the Senate, will pretty much abide by what the president wants. Um, they Even though he wanted Matt Gaetz into the fold that way, I think that people looked at Matt Gaetz just the same as they looked at Rick Scott from down here in Florida. Well, both of them from Florida, and said, "Hey, we work with these guys, and we don't think we want them in leadership position." But I would tend to think that the vast majority of what the president wants will get done.
Well, I'd hope. I mean, that's my hope, of course. But the biggest thing that I've learned, and I'm sure you have, is these politicians, even at the state level, but certainly at the federal level, they only have to get elected once, and that's the very first term. Because after that, once they get up there to Washington D.C. or even here in North Carolina, they get to Raleigh if they're a state senator or state legislator. They found out that the big donors are the ones that can keep their campaigns going. So I certainly agree with you 100% that would certainly seem to be the matter. But the biggest impetus I see in that they're going to, you know, go through Trump's goals and policy and support him is the word self-interest, because there's one thing that politicians um, enjoy in Washington, D.C. or at the state level, that's the self-interest. And there's everybody in these politicians' families, extended families, uh, and that want jobs in the Trump administration. And if they want jobs in the Trump administration, then they're going to have to go along with the big guy. So I think that self-interest thing also enters in a lot of these decisions, is to following the policies. That's how Washington works. You know how you get congressional appointments and how you get the money for things that you want, your pet projects, and set fight interests. So if you want to get those things, you're going to have to go along with the policies administration.
Well, let's take number one on the list, and that has to do with border control. He campaigned for and said that one of the first things he's going to do is begin to deport all of the persons who are here illegally. Obviously, looking at those who've committed crimes, I would imagine that may include those who are in prison, and get them out of here. That's going to be a big budget buster by um, everybody's analysis. It's going to cost a lot of money to gather these people up, put them somewhere, and then transport them back to the countries from which they came. How is that going to be done without? Can he do 75% of that without any congressional input, or is it going to have major congressional input to get this mass deportation done?
Well, I think there's going to require some special augmentation of the budgets of DHS, which I guess is over ICE and all the different divisions under Homeland Security that deal with the border. But yeah, it's going to, I don't think the current funding that goes into the Homeland Security can cover it. So it's definitely going to require some augmentation. Now, I think there's some things that he can do that's going to reduce the need for money. One of the things he can do uh, it falls under the classification of self-deportation. If, in fact, they he passes executive order that you can't use Medicaid or Medicare services or any welfare of any type for illegal aliens, that's going to remove a lot of the attraction for many of these folks who, I don't know, the last time I checked, I think when we say welfare, there's like 18 different programs in the United States that come under the classification of welfare, for like WIC, Women's Infant Children Program, the regular finance, some financial assistance stuff, the SNAP program. Um, but if those programs are removed as attractions for the illegal aliens, I think a lot of them will self-deport. So that doesn't take money other than because they can self-deport on their own dime. They got here on their own dime. They can self-deport on their own dime. But I do believe it's going to be a gradual process. And I agree with you. You're going to have to start first with the bad guys and then also the ones that also they already have deportation orders on that haven't been executed. And then um, I think they do have the budget money, but they haven't been using it. And that is they used to do regular inspections of some of these industries that are suspect for hiring a lot of illegal aliens. The pork industry here in North Carolina, we have the biggest pork plant. Um, I think in the world, it's owned by the Chinese, by the way, right here in North Carolina. And I know for a fact that they're higher illegals. I mean, we have a law that already says the Immigration Naturalization Act, I think of like 1965, already says that if you hire an illegal and you're caught hiring an illegal, it's a $3,000 a person, an illegal fine, plus 6 months in jail for as long as you continue to hire that illegal. So I mean, if you have 300 illegals, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure that's a significant amount of money for that industry, not to speak of the criminal consequences. But we haven't been executing those laws. Under the Biden administration, they've ignored that. So I think if we go back into also inspecting some of these businesses, and the Chamber of Commerce has got their hand in this. We know that for a fact. I mean, the Chamber of Commerce has been known for years to be a big supporter of their clients having cheap labor. And if they can hire an illegal even though that person can't be technically trained because they don't have the language barrier. If they can hire them for two-thirds of what it's costing an American to hire, and they're not giving them insurance and not providing, paid leave, then it's a matter of profit, using labor for profit for the company.
But what are we going to do in terms of labor? Down in Okeechobee, where it looks like the Wild West down there, they have rodeos. They've got nothing but ranches down there. The high school is named after the Brahma Bulls. It's called the Brahmins, and everybody who runs the ranches down there are all Latinos. When you look at a roofing job to get done, one of the crews that shows up to remove the stuff off of your roof is generally going to be about 90% Latino out there that's doing that work. And of course, there's the orange picking and jobs that, and you talked about this in one of your articles. A lot of these jobs are simply jobs that Americans, black or white, don't want and aren't doing anymore. What are we going to do labor wise to fill in that gap uh, that's going to happen when this deportation goes on after we deal with the criminals, which aren't that terribly many of them. But we've got a
Well,
number of people who are here that don't have the green card, aren't covered by DACA. What are we going to do to fill the labor gap when it hits as a result of this deportation?
well, I think the the issue is the Chamber of Labor's discussion and rationale for being lenient on illegal aliens has been that for many years, that they're doing jobs that Americans can't do. However, when you actually look at the census information and you look at the data, there's like over 470 different job classifications. And when they really looked at the data, there were only like six jobs in the United States that had majority of legal and illegal uh, participation, meaning over 50%. I don't have the list of what those six jobs were. I'm sure one of them was landscaping, and it may have been, roofing, but or construction industry. But of those, even in those six occupations in which legals and illegal, not just talking about illegals, there was a high participation rate of Native born Americans. So um, the the issue is at what price? What price is the company willing to pay for the labor? If they're willing to pay an American a good wage and paid insurance and paid leave, then I think that will take care of a lot of the deficits in the labor participation market. Because right now we do have a labor participation market that's low right now, and I don't think the answer is going to be to make it easier for illegal aliens to get those positions, or broadening the H-2B visas, for instance, which is one of the things that's being pushed now, even by Republicans, to increase the number of visas for foreigners that are then going to take American jobs at a lower price.
Well, what about the issue of inflation? He's already talking about and has talked about the fact that he's going to raise tariffs, and looks like the targeted countries are Mexico, Canada, and certainly China. That is going to raise prices on a number of things that we have. Because despite all of the talk we have about American made this and American made that, the fact of the matter is more than half of the stuff that we use is made in China. Certainly, the clothes that we have is made in China, is made somewhere else. We're making the guns here in the U.S. and shipping them to the gangs down in Mexico, who then use them against their own people and against us. But the issue of inflation, the costs are going to go up as a result of these tariffs. Is that a wise thing to do given where we are?
Well, funny enough, I was reading an article about that this morning. I think a lot of that is leverage that Trump is using against China, Mexico, and Canada, who are the main ones that are encouraging, in China's case, the fentanyl coming up, through South America and in Mexico into the United States. In the case of China and I mean Canada, Mexico, the illegal alien crossing from their countries coming into the country, they haven't been putting forth the efforts to control their borders. So I saw an article this morning that Trump is basically telling Canada and Mexico, look, if you're not going to put any effort and they're helping us on this illegal immigration thing, then we're going to increase the tariffs by 25%. To China, he's saying China was already under his previous administration supposed to increase the controls and the punishments against their people that are manufacturing fentanyl and exporting it, but they didn't do that. A big surprise. He's telling China, he's already talked to them actually, and said, look, if you're not going to help control us on this border issue, even though you're not our border, but people that are coming into our country are selling fentanyl and so forth, then we're going to, they already have tariffs on China, I know, but we're going to increase those by another 10%. So I think that's mainly a leverage issue, and it's going to be handled, country by country. I don't think he's going to say, look, everybody that's not a United States country, we're going to put a tariffs on every product coming in, because he realizes what is like you're saying, that the American consumers are going to get the brunt of those price increases, the tariffs. He's also, I think, saying that because there's a lot of these countries that once Trump left the administration, 4 years ago, they relaxed. Um, we stopped. Um, uh, those countries are, putting tariffs on our products like wine and so forth. I know France is one of the terrible ones. They have all these tariffs on our wine going into their country from California primarily. But they got upset when we put a tariff on the wine coming to the United States. So
Mm.
I think it's one of these, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I think
Yeah.
Trump probably understands better, certainly better than me after getting a graduate Wharton school, what the impact can be on, supply and demand curves and so forth. I think that's going to be handled on a case by case basis. I think he's going to be very careful not to come through with a broad sweep of we're going to put tariffs on, Nigeria or whoever, without looking at the impact it's going to have on the consumers. Because he realized, even though he's not having to run for another election term, in order to get the inflation thing under control, that's one of the issues. You can't be having the people, having to pay more for the same product. Um, so I think it's going to be a handle on an individual basis. I don't think he's going to have a broad sweep. His main thing that I saw this morning, which makes sense, is he's using that tactic to help encourage Mexico and Canada, and particularly in China, to get more involved in the problem we're having with the amount of immigrants coming across the border. And we're funding those folks. I mean, I forgot how many billions of dollars it is, but we talk about how much money it's going to cause to deport them. My guess is if it looked at the financial side of it, it probably costs us less to deport them than it is to have them over here. When you look at the fact of, well, I lived in San Diego for almost 20 years. And one of the things that the Hispanics and other foreigners coming up through the Mexican border would do is a woman would be 9 months pregnant, and she would come across the border, and she have relatives in San Diego. She'd live with the relatives in San Diego, give birth to the child, and if that child is given birth in a Medicare supported hospital, in other words, a public hospital, by the abbreviation is EMTALA, the Emergency Medical and Treatment and Labor, I think, Assistance Act. By that act, indigents can't be refused medical treatment in a Medicare hospital. So they come to that hospital, give birth to a child. Two things happen. That child is an American citizen, right? By the 14th Amendment. Anchor baby, birthright citizenship is the actual technical term, legal term. And the other thing is the financial costs for that, giving birth to that child and aftercare, is all taken care of by the American taxpayer. And that happens every day down there.
You've mentioned in your article Marxism in education. Do you think, given the fact that broadly in the incoming president's cabinet, we have people who are going to carry out his dictates along with their own personal thoughts about this, do you think that the issue of Marxism that you cited in education is going to diminish quite a bit? We've already seen diversity in education programs being discontinued around the country. But do you think that the issue that you cite of Marxism in education is going to diminish also?
Well, I think the answer to that, the education in general, not just the Marxism side and the teaching history as it should be taught. I mean, how do you teach history by destroying it, right? I'll I can relate to that, Fred. But I'm getting ready to go to Tennessee, southeastern Tennessee, to a community called the University of the South, which is a small liberal arts college. And my brother lives there. My younger brother Michael's an attorney. He lives there. And I was surprised spending time there that they have their own little DEI organizations, the diversity, equity, inclusion. And gosh, it's gone from a completely very conservative little university to the opposite of that. All the professors are, very, very, far, far, far left. And I think that if what I've wanted to happen for a long time is to see an increase in charter schools and also school choice. I really believe if I, I saw, I think the Cato Foundation did a study in 2018 of the education systems in the United States, and I was alarmed at how much money per student some some states are spending, like as you would suspect, like California and New York spend an inordinate amount of money per pupil, and it's up to 17, 18, $19,000 per pupil, as opposed to Tennessee, which spends $7,000 per student, and yet academically, the Tennessee students score higher on math and science standardized tests than in California and New York City. So we know throwing money is a problem isn't the issue. In fact, I think one of the studies I saw, the since 1960, adjusted for inflation, the amount of money that's gone into education, public education, not private, is like 280% increase. But we haven't improved the education system 280%. We're like 25th or 26th in math and 37th in science. And so I think part of the problem can be resolved on the Marxism and teaching those sorts of education, socialism principles by going to school choice and more charter schools. I think that if the parents have more control, have more input into the curriculum, that a lot of that stuff will take care of it. If in fact if you're a parent and in your state it costs $7,000 per pupil to educate your child, then why not give that parent the choice of going to a parochial school? My little football team here plays a lot of private schools in our league that are Catholic schools, um, church schools affiliated that are private schools, and uh, I think that way part of it is having more control over what the teachers are teaching. And in the public schools right now, the public school teacher unions control the curriculum in this country. I mean, and as you know, about 99% of the money from the local, state, and national teachers unions goes into the Democrat Party. And even though, amazing, I looked at the data, uh, a study, a survey on what the preferences of school teachers or school teachers in this country are believe in is like 45% of them are moderates, they call themselves moderates.
Mm.
And then the liberal and conservatives are kind of split between them, 25% approximately. But yet the union, the school teachers top brass just ignores their teachers, who are certainly not all leftists. In fact, 75% of them are either conservatives or moderates, and they support the Democrat Party 100% funding everything.
Well, they may be support they may the union as a whole, as a policy matter, may support the Democratic Party, but based on the election results, the members of the unions voted red this past
That's
time.
right. They
It,
did. I know.
it,
I tell you what I was amazed at is um, 25% of the black males voted for Trump.
yeah, there was no doubt about that. There were several movements across the country to affect that, but it did not change anything. A lot of black males and Latino males, obviously Cubans down here in Florida, voted for him. In the minute or so we have left, um, what's the state of the country as far as you see it, and what
Well,
what will
I
be the
think we're in
state?
a transition. I'm very positive about being a middle class guy. I mean, I think that I'm hopefully. I mean, I go into the grocery store and look at what I've got in my basket for $100. holy cow. I said, the dog and I can eat for about a couple of days, you know. But I'm positive. A lot of it's going to have to do with how quick we get these cabinet members into their groove. I see a lot of criticism about some of the people that Trump has appointed, but you know what? Given the choice of vetting people for 2 months or getting go, he can always fire them, right? But he needs to hit the deck plates running because 4 years is not very long.
All right. Mr. Snipe, 1945. Terry Payne from out of Marlborough, North Carolina. It is always a pleasure speaking with you. We will have a conversation sooner than we did the last time. But again, thank you for joining us, Terry.